Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Boxing Authorities. Joining us from his home studio in Pittsburgh, Luther Dupree Jr., and on my right, of course, Smokin Jim Frazier, and my name is Claudio Relsano. You know, whenever I was writing the script for our next couple shows, I dabbled into the history of Pittsburgh boxing, but it kept going and kept going and kept going. So, as all of you know, all three of us were based out of Pittsburgh, born in Pittsburgh, our studio's in Pittsburgh. So we are going to do a two-part series of the history of Pittsburgh boxing. Not all of it, of course, but a lot of it.
I'm from Monroeville.
What's that?
I'm from Monroeville.
Well, I say Monroeville. Luther was here. He'd get on you about that. But so we're going to mention a lot of names, legendary names, not just some guys who went through the business, but guys who made the business. So what we're going to start off with today and yesterday, we're going to start off with some guys who are fighting today that maybe are not from Pittsburgh originally, but were brought over here and are based out of Pittsburgh. So we're going to start off with Mike McSorley, who is one of the owners of Integrity Boxing, who's a great trainer and, of course, great manager to these guys, great cornerman. He has a bantamweight named Oleg Dovhan, which we have seen. I think his nickname is a Pitbull, if I'm not mistaken. We've seen him fight, Luther and Jim. We've announced some of his fights. And this guy is just that. He comes at you, he'll take some hits, but he'll give you 10. Luther, your thoughts on Oleg?
Yeah, Oleg, very exciting fighter. You're not going to be in for a boring fight when you see him.
Right. Always
in the guy's pocket, shoulder to shoulder. It's going to be a brawl. I'm excited about him. I think he has a bright future, and I think he can do some things. He has to stay with it. But I'm excited. Pitbull is definitely a perfect name for you because he's on your butt and he doesn't get off until he gets what he wants. So, yeah, I'm excited about him.
Luther, you make a good point that he's in your pocket. I like that phrase. He's always going to be in for a good fight, and fans want good fights. Now, Mike McSorley and his trainers might not want that, okay? They might not want him to be in those big-time exciting fights, but the fans are going to pay money for that. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody who sees him fight once, they want to see him fight again.
Right.
So, yeah, very exciting. So, yeah, I think he keeps up with it. Everybody's going to be excited when they see this guy, man. He's an exciting fighter. Great prospect.
Smokin Jim, your thoughts on him?
Well, I love him. He's from Ukraine originally.
Right, thank you.
This guy's 13-0. He's ranked number 6 by the WBA. But don't forget, he had 347 amateur fights, so he's very experienced. It's hard for him to get fights. He turned pro in 2017. He's only averaging 3 fights a year. And the main reason is don't nobody really want to fight him. He's that good.
And thank you for bringing up the fact he's from the Ukraine. Another fighter from the Ukraine is Lyubomir Pinchuk. He's a cruiserweight. Again, he's also with Integrity Boxing and Mike McSorley. Now, he just recently won a fight, and he's got a few belts on his belt, on his waist. And he's a guy, Luther, who I think has a shot to keep climbing up. He can take a punch, he can give a punch, and he's another one who's an exciting fighter. And the thing about both of these guys is something that all three of us say, he's serious about the business. It isn't like, whatever. No, and Luther, I know you sent me some texts about certain fighters that they're into it, they're not into it. These two guys are into it. Would you agree? Oh,
yeah, I think they're into it. They're dedicated to their craft. And you see layers. It seems like every time you see them, it seems like they add something to the toolbox. So that's what I'm excited about. Lombard, we've seen him a couple times. Very exciting. He had another showing on a great card. So I'm impressed. I think he has a great future as well. From the Ukraine, he's hungry. Both of these guys are over here fighting with a great promoter. So, yes, two exciting guys. I expect a lot of great things from them.
And, again, Luther hit the word. I said they're serious. Luther said hungry. And they are hungry. They really want it. Your thoughts on Lyubomir, his talents as well?
Well, he's a big boy. He's 6'3". He's a cruiserweight. He could easily move up to bridger weight.
Yeah, there you go.
Or, heavyweight and really make some money. They call him the Demolition Man. I think he holds one of your belts, the ABF cruiserweight champion. And I tell you what, man, he had over 250 amateur fights in the Ukraine, so he's experienced. Turned pro in 2017 and has been averaging 4 fights a year. So he has 17 fights, and you figure they probably took a year off during COVID to, there probably wasn't that many fights they could get. So that's what I like. I like young fighters to get at least 4 fights a year.
Jim, you are very, very heavy on amateur fights.
Yes.
Do you think that, how many did you say that Olev had?
Over 250.
And Lubomir has how many?
347.
Do you think that's too much? You think that's too many miles before you hit the pro ranks?
No, especially if you turn pro early enough. I think that most of the American-born fighters have been waiting too long to turn pro. 15 or 16 years old, some guys are ready, you know? And as long as you don't turn pro too late, I mean, it's never good to get that accumulation of punches in the head in amateur fights, but you learn a lot.
Oh, yeah.
347 fights, man, you really know how to fight.
Jim, you mentioned real quick before we get to Luther again, the Bridger weight. That could be an exciting division. It's waiting for somebody to dominate it.
Wow,
right? Well, I don't think he's going to come down to that. But like you mentioned, Lubomir, it's waiting for somebody to dominate. If it's Rivas, it's Rivas. Right now, he's the dog right now. But Lubomir probably has his eye on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Your thoughts on that?
Well,
besides Wilder.
Hey, you want to be able to challenge yourself. When you're that experienced, over 250 amateur fights, 17 professional fights, you're going to follow the money. If there's opportunity to get another belt and you only got to move up a few pounds, got to give up a few pounds, why not?
All right. Luther, your thoughts on what I asked Jim. Do you think that 200, 300 amateur fights are a little too much, too many miles before you actually hit the road and make money as a professional?
I don't think so. I would like a guy to turn pro a little sooner, and it depends on how many wars. Now, if you've been in a lot of wars and taken a lot of punishment, I mean, it's just a disaster. But if you've been wiping guys out, you're an older guy fighting a bunch of teenagers, and you're wiping them out, it's different. And we know a couple guys you guys have in your pound for pound that did that. He was an old guy fighting teenagers and powered up to win. But if you're in a bunch of wars, it's different. But if you're the old guy beating up on little kids, it's not that bad.
And your thoughts on Lubomir maybe entering the Bridger weight? Now is the time to enter that, because right now the big name and kind of the only recognizable name thus far is Oscar Rivas.
I think now is a perfect time for him. They're looking for somebody to embody that championship. The WBC, I guess Oscar Rivas has it right now. He's very beatable. We've seen him beaten before.
Right.
But yeah, I think this is a perfect time for him to make that move. Not a lot of competition out there.
And again, both of them fight under the banner of Integrity Boxing at the Smokin Jim. Mike McSorley and J.J. Richardson, both great guys. Now, a friend of the show, guys, again, we've seen these guys to our fans since they started, right? Or at least when they got here to United States. But Johnny Spell is a guy who I think has a chance to go big time, because he's another one who's serious about his craft, who's damn good. And the thing I liked about him, Luther and Jim, was after his wins, he didn't say, yeah, I did this, I did that. No, I did okay, I got to be, even when he looked really good, I need to work on this, I need to work on that. And that struck me. He's not laying back saying, oh man, I won, I'm good. No, he's hungry, he's hungry. And as Dan Marino always says, you can do more, you can always do more.
Maybe he ought to work on getting more fights.
Oh, here you go with the hate.
I'm just saying.
Jim.
I'm just saying.
Go ahead, Luther. Jim's got...
Yeah, I knew he was going to find a way to hate on us. The first black guy we talk about, of course, Jim has a slander coming.
Oh, man. Go ahead, Luther.
Never disappoint. Hey, listen, I think Johnny Spell has a chance to be one of the great 122-pounders, 126, 130-pounders. I don't know how he makes that weight.
Right.
He's very tall for that division. He's been in camp with Floyd Mayweather.
Right.
He's fought all these guys. He's sparred a little bit with Shakur Stevenson. So he's right in there, and he's held his own. I'm very impressed. He showed a lot more power at this level. I'm excited about his future, man. Johnny Spell, he has the personality, he has the looks.
Yep.
And he has so much more power since he's come out of the amateurs. I'm excited. I think he can really do some things. He's getting better and better every time. He walked into the ring and challenged a guy from Philly for the belt. Yep. After the last fight, he's doing what he needs to do. Johnny Spell is the future. I'm really impressed with him.
You mentioned that he's been in there at the Mayweather camp with the Shakur Stevenson. You cannot help but improve after you get in the ring with those guys. And like you said, he held his own at this stage of his game. And he's learning. He's learning. And he has a frame to get a little bigger too. So I'm with you. I think he's got a great future in front of him. Now we're going to have to ask Mr. Frazier that. Go ahead.
Well, the only thing he's getting going to all these different camps and traveling is frequent flyer miles. But hey, listen, I watched this kid ever since he was little. I always thought he was going to be a great basketball player, man. He was a very good basketball player. I thought he waited too long to turn professional. He's 26 years old. He only got 5 fights. And his biggest thing is his athletic ability. That's the first thing. Your athletic ability and your reflexes are the first 2 things to go. So if he's going to make a move, it has to be soon at 26.
You know, Luther, he does make an excellent point. 20, although a guy like Joe Joyce, who's 36 years old and he's 14 wins, and he's already talked about being a #1 contender or fighting for the belt. What would you do with Johnny Spell next? I mean, how many rungs of the ladder would you jump him up? So, or would you keep him on this pace, Luther?
Listen, Jim acts like 26 is 36. 26, he's still in his prime. He still has a chance to do great things. I think he's on a nice trajectory. I'd like to see him fight a little more and step up the competition. But 26, he's still in the prime of his career. He can still do great things, Jim.
Yeah, he's going
to step him up 3-4 fights a year. I think he's right in there. He's ready.
Well, he's going to do great things on YouTube. I agree with that. We like YouTube fighters.
What would you do? How much would you jump him up?
Well, again,
a top 20 guy? Would you have him fight a top 20 guy?
Now, his dad was a great professional fighter. His dad is his trainer. And I thought he was ready to turn pro at 16 years old. That's how good he was 10 years ago. Right now, and he would be a world champion at 26. Lou's talking about Johnny fighting 4-5 times a year, where he only fights once a year. I mean, you know what I mean? I would like to see him fight. I would like to see him fight 4 or 5 times a year. I like to see that, but we haven't seen that yet.
Go ahead, Luth.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen it yet. Remember, he was doing some other things, then decided to turn pro.
Was he rapping?
Pardon me?
Was he rapping?
I don't know what he was doing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what he was doing. He was doing some other things, trying different careers, and now it's that. And I think he's ready. Get him a couple more fights. I think he needs to try to get a top 20 guy. Start making those moves to bigger fight.
I'm with you, Luth.
Ready. He has a great style. He's shown impressive power in both hands now. So that's what I'm very happy about.
I'm with you.
I didn't see it a whole lot in the amateurs, but now he's grown into his man strength, and he's knocking these guys out.
I'm with you, Luth. I'm with you all the way. And a fighter that the first time I saw him on the bridge, the Clemente Bridge, when he had an outdoor fight, Keontae Irving. As soon as I seen him within the first, in all honesty, 10, 15 seconds, I said, that kid has it.
They better keep him off the Clemente Bridge.
Luther, I'm going with you now. He's 9-0-1, 9 KOs, super middle, trained under Tommy Yankello, who is a legend here in this area and everywhere. Tommy's a great, great trainer. We're lucky here in Pittsburgh that we have 2 big-time trainers that are damn good at what they do. And that's Mike McSorley and Tommy Yankello. Your thoughts on Keontae Irving?
Listen, when Tommy Yankello puts the stamp of approval on you, you know you have something. Keontae Irving has all the skills. I don't know how he makes that weight. We've seen him put guys out. A couple times he's knocked guys out and they had to be carried out on a stretcher.
Yeah.
Ambulance on deck. We've seen him lay guys out. He has that type of power. I hope he can stay dedicated to the sport and really, commit himself, because I think he has potential to do some great things. I think he has the potential to get a couple titles, and great size, great power. We just got to make sure he keeps the mentality and the focus on boxing. I think he can do some good things.
Luther, now again, he's only fought 10 fights. So when he's ready for a title shot, is it going to be a good time to jump into the super middleweight contender world? Because there's guys who are welterweight champions that may continue to move up. Do you think it's a good time or maybe a little bit of a tricky time to, like I said, maybe 3 years from now to fight for a super middleweight belt?
Well, he has to get more active. Like you said, only around 9 fights. I think it's a good time. It has to be now for him because, like you said, these young guys are moving up. They're getting bigger. It has to be now. I think Keontae Irving has to make his move, whether he's going to stick with the sport and give it his all. The time is now. He has to make it happen.
Top 25 yet? Do you think he should fight a top 25 guy?
He had a difficult fight his last one, for what I heard. I didn't get a chance to see it live. I think he needs to try to get a top 25. Definitely top 25.
Okay.
Just to see where he's at. Yeah, for sure.
Smokin Jim.
Well, what I love about Luther is he likes to keep hope alive. Hey, listen, this is a guy who won a national championship as an amateur. He beat the Cubans. But again, he's 27 years old, and in my opinion, I believe he's retired. I went past.
He's retiring.
Last week or the week before last, I went past World Class Gym, and when I used to go there in Ambridge, no matter when I went, I used to see this guy named Marty Mason Clay.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, whenever I go past there, I never see Keontae Irving training. I think he's retired. You know what I mean? His last fight was September 18th. I was there. He got a hometown decision draw. He hasn't fought since September. You think after getting a draw in your hometown where everybody thought that you lost the fight, that you would get back in the ring as soon as possible. Here it is almost February, and there's no sign of Keontae Irving having a fight in the near future. I think he's retired.
I don't know if he's retired, Jim. It's just maybe he's a little more reluctant to go back in because, again, you know, we talk about it. The mentality of sports, of life, really, can be tough. You know, you hear all this praise about yourself, and you got the look, and you got the punch, and like Luther said, you're stretching guys out. And all of a sudden, somebody is a little more challenging to you than everybody thought. That can do some damage. So I'm sure all three of us, Luther and Jim, agree that not only the best make it to the top physically because of their physical prowess, but also because of their mentality. There's some athletes out there, wide receivers, let's say in football, who had a hell of a lot more talent than Steve Largent.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But when Largent got cut, he didn't pack it in. You know, he kept Cowboys cut him, and he kept coming, and he became a Hall of Fame wide receiver. There's people a lot more talented than Steve Largent, but you have to have. And I'm not saying Keontae doesn't have it, but maybe he was taken aback a little bit by having a fight that he expected to walk through the guy, and the guy didn't. So maybe he's kind of evaluating things. And I understand what you're saying, Jim, and I'm not trying to ride the fence, but he definitely should be in training right now. But before he goes back in the ring, he should be ready, not only physically, but mentally. And I'm not saying he isn't. Luther, your thoughts?
Listen, anytime you lose, you know, you have to worry if you lost some confidence or not.
Right.
And that's what we have to worry about. Jim's retiring people early as he usually does. I think he's trying to work on some things to get his confidence back.
Right.
Jim said, a lot of people thought he lost. He wants to work on some stuff. Hopefully he hasn't, because I think he has talent, and I'd hate to see him give it up before he really gives it a full chance to see what happens. I mean, like you said, he's 27. It has to be now. Does he want to do it or not? I hope he gives it another shot. He gets a top 25 guy and just see where he's at. Hopefully he's worked on some things and he's able to make it happen. But, Jim, stop retiring these guys early, man. Well, show some respect for these guys. Come on, Jim.
I was always taught if you fall off the horse, get right back on as soon as possible. Yeah. September 18th, and there's no fight in the near future. I mean, come on, man. He's retired.
Jim makes a point.
He takes some damage. We don't know how much damage did he take. It was a difficult fight. Sometimes you have to, take a while to recover.
Well, but Jim makes a point because the longer you wait, Luther, the more doubt sets in. Can I do it? Can I? And you're getting older. Yeah. I'm with Jim. You lose. For me, I want to get back at it right away. And I know if we lose a game as a coach, I know it's different because it's not physical. You know, I'm not getting hit. But I don't want my team to drag. I don't want them to be in that world of loss, because when you're in that world of loss, say, well, is it me or is it the other guy, or do I have it anymore? No, let's get, like Jim said, you fall off the horse, get back on it right away. So I understand where Jim's coming from. And hopefully, like I said, I think Keontae has star written all over him, and hopefully he can get back on that horse, as Jim said. And finally, locally, Tika Hemingway, who I know all of us have talked about for years, the talent and the skills that she has. She is 28-13-1 with 6 KOs. Luther, your thoughts on where Tika is now in her future?
Right, another friend of the show.
Right.
We've had her on the show a number of times. Speaks well. She's a great mentor for young girls in the area. And now she's come back to boxing. You know, she's legendary. She fought Clarissa Shields twice, gave her some great competition. And we could have been looking at a 2-time Olympian champion if she got past Clarissa Shields. I'm hoping she sticks with it. Another fighter, she's not really active enough for me. But in women's boxing, you can go to the championship with 6 or 7 fights and be a championship fight. So I hope she sticks with it. Great hands. She's gone viral with her training videos. She's training with Roy Jones Jr. She has the skills. We just have to see if she wants to stay dedicated or go on and continue mentoring the youth of the future. But I think she has the skills, very fast hand, classic boxer. I hope she sticks with it, but she has potential to do some things as well. Like I said, 10 wins can get you a championship fight. Women's boxing is on the rise again. Right. Despite what Jim says, it's on the rise. A lot of great competition, a lot of great fights out there for her. I think she could be right in the mix.
Jim.
Well, I got to correct my great host and friend Claudio. When you say 28 wins, that's amateur.
Oh, my fault.
She only had no. That's all right, because her boxing record is very. It says that on the boxing record, and they're wrong. So I'm not blaming you. She has one professional fight. That was back on November 7th, 2020, on Christy Martin's card. One of the greatest in-gym fighters ever seen. She fights guys. She fights anybody in the gym. Her next fight is signed, sealed, and delivered. She's fighting about once every 2 years. She's fighting a girl that has a draw, that has a background in bare knuckle fighting. They're dragging her in here from Omaha, Nebraska, but you got to start somewhere. She fought her first amateur fight in 2006. So I don't know how old she is, but she got to be in her 30s. And so the clock is ticking. She's in great shape. She's beating up the guys in the gym. I hope now. I think Tika's biggest problem in professional fighting, reason she only has one fight, is that she wants the big paydays. And usually when you're starting off, you're getting $100 a round. She probably wants $10,000 a round, and she's not going to be exploited. But like I said, she would be great for women's boxing, which is on the rise with everybody but Clarissa Shields that can't draw. So I think Tika Hemingway, if she gets there and gets back, she talks a lot of trash, does a lot of stuff on social media, and she can bang. So hopefully this will be the first step of maybe 4 or 5 fights a year.
Jim, am I wrong in my analogy? In baseball, you have spring training and exhibition games. Then you fight the real fight, but it's a consistent thing. In football, what do you have? Training camps, exhibition. Then you fight. Or, I'm sorry, you play the real games.
Good point.
With boxers, being in the gym is nice, but you have to be in the live speed of the game. You just don't go, you know, miss, don't do anything. Go in the gym, come and fight. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? Did I explain that well?
Yes, and that's why a lot of trainers keep their fighters amateur
busy, active,
long, because you can fight every weekend as an amateur. And if you fight a tournament on the weekend, you might fight 3 or 4 fights on a weekend. Where professionally, you're lucky to get 4 fights a year.
My point is, you don't see an NFL player, basketball player, baseball, hockey, whoever, just go from the end of the season, long break, right into the big fight of the original, the regular season. And that's what seems like she's doing maybe Keontae. Those long breaks, you You got to be productive. You got to do something, and even more than just training because of the speed of the game. And you know, Jim Leland used to say, "Give me the player who's good after the national anthem, not before it." Yeah. You mentioned certain fighters good in the gym, but then when the bell rings and the lights are on, it is a different story. So I think that she has to get more acclimated to that. I know she wants a big payday, and that's great. But you have to let people know who you are to get that big payday. Am I wrong?
I agree. You know, I think she's living on her accolades from amateurs. She was one of the greatest. I think she was ranked number 2 in the world for a long time as an amateur. So she figured that, you know, the Olympics probably would have got her that if she had won the Olympics. But Clarissa Shields beat her, you know, a number of times, not just the 2 times that Luther's talking about 5 times.
Luther, final word on the future of Pittsburgh boxing.
You know, with Golden Gloves and some of the amateurs, we're on the rise. I mean, I know me and Jim covered it for years, and Philly would come in here and pretty much dominate us at the Golden Gloves. I think, you know, with Jimmy Savetic, the legacy that he left, and they're carrying on, I think, you know, we'll continue to grow, and hopefully we can get some guys like a Johnny Spell to take it to the next level. We just need that one. Right. You know, we had the Paul Spadafores that were hot for a while, and the Rayco, but I think we need to get back to that more. I know we used to do a lot of things with amateur boxing at the studio here, and hopefully we can do that more. But Jim, one question I do want to ask, who is the draw in women's boxing? Because you always slander Clarissa Shields for not being a draw. Who's the biggest draw in women's boxing? Not UFC, women's boxing.
Well, I would say the one girl, Baumgardner. There's another girl.
A big draw. She just had her biggest fight, and she wasn't the headliner on that card.
But I tell you what, she's been, social media is everywhere. Right. There's another girl from Australia who used to be a ring card girl. Now she's knocking everybody out.
But I'm saying, who's headlining cards? Clarissa has headlined a number of cards.
But nobody wants to see her. Nobody wants to see her. I mean, I love her as a boxing.
So you say.
Huh?
So you say.
Is she drawing like Christy Martin? Is she drawing like Layla Ali?
Christy Martin and Layla Ali were, you know, that's a whole different ball game. They were 2 of the, you know, they were the pioneers.
No, that's excuses you're making.
No, those are facts.
No, that's
facts
excuses.
Over feelings, Jim.
Hey, she's not drawing like that. She's a 2-time
Olympic
Olympic champion.
Shields is on the climb.
She's a 2-time Olympic champion. You know, she should be outdrawing them.
You know, Amanda Serrano. Those 2 are on the rise to get to that level, Jim. You know, they're still in the middle of their career, and you're slandering them already. Give them a chance, Jim.
Luther, I seen that on page 112 in your excuse book. Luther, she's a 2-time Olympic champion. She should be outdrawing them. Sugar Ray Leonard only won 1 Olympics, and he was the biggest draw in the world.
Support. She had to jump over to the UFC because nobody's backing her.
Because nobody wants to see her. She has no charisma.
Some of the men put her on the undercard. You know, I wish she would have been on the undercard of a Spence pay-per-view or a Wilder, you know, or a Fury undercard.
Give me Baumgardner.
Like Jake Paul did with Amanda Serrano. He put her on the undercard. She has exploded since then. Now she has a big money fight coming up with Katie Taylor. That's what needs to happen as well. Christy Martin and Layla Ali, what happened? Don King put them on the undercards of an Evander fight, of a Mike Tyson fight. So that automatically put them in front of eyeball.
Layla Ali
needed to happen.
Layla Ali didn't fight for Don King. She didn't need Don King. She had her daddy. She was an Ali.
She had a built-in name, just like Ali's grandson, Nico Ali Walsh, has a built-in name. You know, not a great talent, but he has the name, so he has that behind him. Christy Martin was built on those undercards. She was an exciting fighter, but she was placed strategically by Don King to get her to the next level.
She was a big draw before then.
That hasn't happened.
ESPN and everything else.
And some of the other one. That's all I'm saying.
Luther.
Quit the slander is what I want you to do.
For my money, I'll take Baumgardner. For my money, that's who I follow.
You know what,
in women's boxing.
Okay, that's great. She's starting off. She's a great fighter. She has a great look.
Yeah,
and she's building. But if you ask most people, more people still know Clarissa Shields over Baumgart.
Nobody I know knows her.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, Luth, you know, something that you do, you're right about putting them in front of more eyes. Lastly, on a sugar packet I read in college years ago, it said, he or she who has a thing to sell and goes and whispers in a well is not apt to get the dollars as he who climbs a tree and hollers. So in other words, promote. Like you said numerous times when you're sitting here on my left, certain fighters have the machine. They have the machine pushing them. And I think that's what Shields needs, Tika needs, somebody to, and we've talked about it numerous times, promote these people. Let people know they have the look. Okay, but let's promote them. Let's get their story out there so people can be attached to it. But I'm with you, Luther. Put them in these big cards. Their promoters or managers should contact a Don King or Hearns or PBC or Aram or whoever. Say, we would like, they're going to be just as exciting as the guy who's 1 and 2 fighting on the first opening card. Okay, let these people, let the fans know who these girls are, and I think then they'll take off. But hopefully that'll happen. Well, on our next segment, when we come back, we're going to talk about the legends that have come out of Pittsburgh, and I mean legendary fighters, when we come back with the Boxing Authorities. Welcome back to the Boxing Authorities. As I said earlier, the names that we are going to talk about are iconic. We're going to start right away with Fritzy Zivic. Luther, your thoughts on Fritzy and his career?
All right. Listen, man, Fritzy, you know, 233 fights, 158 wins, 81 knockouts. This guy was just, you know, a welterweight champion, held it from like 1940 to 1941, fought some of the greats. Very exciting fighter, but I know you guys have probably seen these guys live a lot more than me. I'm you know, give you the time to really jump on this, Claudio.
Right. Well, you know what? Just some interesting facts, real quick, Jim. He lost a very close fight to Hall of Famer Billy Conn at the Duquesne Gardens, which, as you know, was big time here in Pittsburgh. Beat Sammy Angot at Forbes Field, which was, you know, he packed the place. He got $3,200 for that fight. Beat the legendary Henry Armstrong for the welterweight title. He beat Jake LaMotta, which I did not know this, in Forbes Field. And then the next month, Luther and Jim, he fought a great fighter called Young Kid McCoy. Both had big crowds. So he fought in Forbes Field 2 months in a row. All right. Now, your thoughts on the legendary Fritzy Zivic?
Well, you know, I'm a big Fritzy Zivic fan, but I like to really talk about the 65 guys who beat the Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
That's an awful lot of losses, but hey,
157 wins.
Hey, he fought everybody. He was tough. You know, one of the great legendary fighters to come out of Pittsburgh.
And he fought Charlie Burley, who was 1-1 with Charlie Burley. He beat Billy Arnold. And again, he fought the legendary Billy Conn. So Fritzy Zivic, you know, people still talk about him. And he won the championship in I don't know what year he won it, but again, he fought in the 40s and the 30s. And 157 wins. Unbelievable. Our next guy is somebody who deserves and needs to get more credit here in Pittsburgh at different venues, and also nationally. Charlie Burley, who had a career of 83 wins, 12 losses, 50 knockouts, welterweight and lightweight champ. And a lot of people say he reminds them of Roy Jones Jr., and unfortunately, Luther, he never got a shot to win a belt. Your opinion on Mr. Burley?
Listen, man, Charles Burley out of Bessemer, Pennsylvania.
Right, Bessemer.
One of the greats. 83 wins, 50 wins by KOs. I mean, he was just a legend, man. And it's a shame. As I always tell you guys, he fought in that BMR, the Black Murderers Row. They were, you know, boxed out of the championship. They had the world colored middleweight title. And I think it was the wrong. He doesn't get enough credit, but he was one of the greats. Nobody could beat him. He was stuck. Only 5'9", could fight at a number of levels. You know, it's a shame he has the title of a world-colored welterweight champion, a world-colored middleweight champion because of discrimination and ducking. You know, it's a shame. But he, you know, like you said, he fought Zivic. I think he was, you know, you look at the skills that he had, man. He fought a crazy style that nobody wanted. He could make you look very bad. 50 KOs. Like you said, people say Roy Jones, and when you look at the tape, I could see why. He was that skilled, and I wish he would have got, a chance to really go to the next level. And it's just a shame he didn't get a chance to do that. But definitely a true legend. Fought at weights between 145 and 162 pounds. Just a legend. He could move. He could punch. It's a shame he doesn't get more credit.
And real quick, Fritzy Zivic from Lawrenceville, Pennsylvania. But Jim and Luther, the thing that jumped out at me about Charlie Burley, he was ahead of his time physically. If you watch him, look at his feet. Look at him ducking and dodging. Look at him throwing a punch after a duck or after a good left jab, throwing a good straight right. If you didn't know any better, you would say he was fighting today because of his skills. I mean, I think we lost out on the greatness of Charlie Burley, and there's not that much video. And he still, when he was older, still was not bitter. At least he didn't say it of what happened to him. He didn't get the big shot. Your thoughts on Charlie Burley?
Well, I got to disagree with you and Luther. The fighters back then had better, boxing techniques. So he doesn't look like a fighter today. He looked like fighters back then. Fighters today would get killed. Everybody want to talk about comparing him to Roy Jones Jr. He'd knock out Roy Jones Jr. Yeah. Roy didn't have no skills, you know what I mean? Roy was just a great athlete that did everything wrong and got away with it. Listen, Charlie Burley beat guys like Fritzy Zivic, who he was one of the 65 to beat him. He beat Ezra Charles.
Right.
Ezra Charles was one of the great heavyweight champions of all time, and he beat Archie Moore and Sugar Ray Robinson, who was very good friends with Charlie Burley. Sugar Ray Robinson had an apartment here in Pittsburgh. A lot of people didn't know about that. And he would never fight Charlie Burley, refused to fight him. Here's a guy that never won a world championship, but he was unanimously pretty much elected into the Hall of Fame. Congratulations. They're still talking about Charlie Burley to this day.
As they should. A few facts about him. He fought champions, as Jim said, in the welterweight class all the way to light heavy and heavyweight. Think about that. And he fought, again, the great Ezra Charles. And he was never stopped in 98 fights. Think about that. He was never stopped. I mean, we lost out on not seeing more video of that guy. But when we come back, we are going
real quick, one
go ahead,
more
Luther.
thing.
Sure.
Claudio, now
yes,
also he was great in baseball as well. They said the Homestead Braves even offered him a contract. He was that great of an athlete. And we talked about who was ducked by. Sugar Ray Robinson, Billy Corn, or two of the guys who would not fight this guy, and it's a shame.
Hey, Luther, are you related to Charlie Burley?
Probably. I have to do a little more digging, probably.
But he's one of those guys, Luther, again, in my opinion, if you took him from his era and put him here, he would be a champion. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, he'd been champion about 5 weight classes.
Hey, Claudio, you were perfectly right with what you said. You watch film from those guys, back in the 40s, and, you watch him, the way he fought, the way he moved was so much different than those guys. That's why they didn't want to fight him. He was a guy that could make you look bad because he was so skilled, had power, much like Roy Jones could make you look bad in there. He would do things that people weren't accustomed to back then and still aren't accustomed to. No, so any era, he would be a problem, Jim. Stop that.
Yeah,
he was one of a kind.
I said he would dominate. He would have 5 championships in this era. I wasn't talking bad about your uncle.
Well, Luther, listen to what I'm telling you now. In sports, the hockey swing or shot has stayed the same. The baseball swing has stayed the same, even though they're trying to ruin it. The basketball shot has changed. Used to be a set shot. Now it's a nice jumper. Boxing, back when the Fitzsimmons and all that kind of stuff, where they used to do the bare knuckles, that has changed. And Charlie Burley was one of the guys who wasn't a plodder. He didn't just slug. Him and Sugar Ray Robinson, they bounced, they moved, they stuck a jab. They didn't just punch and admire their
tap
throws.
Dancers.
Yeah, well, whatever. But
they had skills. They were elite athletes.
Right. They had great feet.
He could have gone pro in baseball. He was fluid out there. He could move and duck. It was different. He wasn't.
Sugar Ray Robinson was a professional tap dancer. He was good.
But you know what, Luther? What is the key? What do they say? The sweet science. We said it numerous times. It's to hit. It's to hit and not get hit.
Exactly. You know, I mean, it's exciting to see two guys brawling, going toe-to-toe. Mexican style, whatever. But, when you got a guy that can move, stick and move, and has power in both hands, those guys are tough to deal with. You ask a lot of the old boxers,
right?
Those guys can make you look bad.
And the thing, and I'm going to admit it, full transparency, that's the first time I ever saw a video. Obviously, I've read a lot and heard about Charlie Burley, but never saw a video. And I saw that, and the first thing that hit me is, damn, if you didn't know any better, you thought he was fighting today. He had that skill. Good.
You know what I would like to bring back? It just hit me. These guys, a lot of guys have bad feet. I think that'll bring tap dancing back. Have you ever seen a tap dancer with bad feet?
Well, Lynn Swann, the Hall of Fame football player, used to take ballet lessons.
So phony.
Whatever. But Marciano didn't have the greatest of feet, so that thing on Rocky, where they tied his feet together, that's what they did with Rocky Marciano. So, but those guys, Sugar Ray and Burley, but we're sticking to Burley, unbelievable athlete. But I liked his jab, Luther, and I liked the stiff right after the jab, and he moved. He didn't just stand there and get pounded. I love the way his skills.
Yeah, but definitely, man. He was great, man. It's a shame he didn't get more of a chance to fight the big guys, the Sugar Ray. I think him and Sugar Ray Robinson would have been an amazing fight, and it's a shame that Sugar Ray said he didn't bring anything to the table. Yeah, that was the first we heard of that ASAP, B-side stuff.
Hey, Luther, I think he brought too.
Jim would have loved it.
He brought too much to the table.
Right,
he brought too much
to the table. That's what it was.
Hey, you don't tell. I mean, he said he didn't bring enough to the table. You don't think a Con Burley fight in Pittsburgh at Forbes Field would have packed the house?
That would have packed the house. That wasn't what it was. He didn't like what he was bringing because it would have been a war, and he might have beat him.
Not only would it pack the house, but back then the blacks had to sit on one side, the whites would have had to sit on the other side. So you would have known who had the fan base.
Well, when we come back, our popular segment, the Boxing Mailbag. Right back with the Boxing Authorities. Welcome back to the Boxing Authorities, our popular segment, the Boxing Mailbag. Write us at boxingmailbag@yahoo.com or on my website, ClaudioRelsano.com, on my show, Claudio Relsano Show, which Luther and Jim are on all the time. Okay, this is for all three. Raymond from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Just started watching your show. Love you guys. Love this show. Things have been tough for me lately, and watching you guys brightens my day. Keep up the great work. Raymond, we appreciate it. You hang in there, brother, and I'm glad we can bring you some enjoyment. And these two guys will bring anybody up. So, again, we hope you're better, and thank you for writing. This is Raymond again from Baton Rouge for all three of us. Besides boxing, what other sport did you guys make your names in? Luther, we'll start with you. I know you were a college baseball player, but tell them a little bit about you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I played baseball, All City, Peabody High School, and I went to Howard, played as well. Baseball, at Howard as well. And I had tryouts with the Kansas City Royals, Pittsburgh Pirates. So I love baseball. And I played every sport in high school, football, basketball, baseball. But baseball is where I had my most success.
All right. Mr. Frazier.
Yeah, football, ran track, and I was the first ninth grader in my school history to wrestle varsity. Wow. And in Louisiana and Western Pennsylvania got the best quarterbacks, man. The best quarterbacks come out of Louisiana and Pittsburgh.
All right. Well, I was a center for the Los Angeles Lakers. I backed up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the 70s. No, of course, I'm in baseball. I've been coaching for 38 years at some different schools here locally. Right now, I'm the head baseball coach at Carnegie Mellon University. Just finished up my 16th year. I've been scouting professionally for the Global Scouting Bureau, general manager and lead scout for the Global Scouting Bureau since 2001. And so I was a good player, but again, kind of made more of my name as a coach and as a scout, and very blessed to be doing that. And thank you for the question, Raymond. Sammy, for Washington, D.C., all three of us. With all the nutrition and better training and rest habits, and the boxers fight less, why are they not as good? It's a good question. Luther, with all the training and the rest, and they don't fight as much, and all the training methods and nutrition, why aren't they as good as they are today? Or from yesterday?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for the question. I think the reason it's not as good is because they're not active enough. It's great to have all the training and analytics and nutrition, but if you're not actively fighting in real life competition, you're going to lose some of those skills.
Right.
So we see one fight, those guys look great. They don't fight for 7 months, and it looks like they've lost so much. I think it's because they're not active enough. and too much analytical training. I'd like to see more of that road work, some old school training, and guys should be fighting at least 3 times a year.
That's with you. Like. Smokin Jim, real quick.
Well, the main thing is the trainers are horrible now. You know what I mean? You got Mike Tyson got his homeboys being his trainer, so you're not going to learn anything. I don't care what kind of shape you're in. You need somebody to teach you how to do better.
You can have a great car, but you need a great driver. Luther and Jim, both of you are right on the button, and I agree with you guys 1,000%. And thank you, Sammy, and thank you, Raymond, for the emails. We appreciate it. And again, keep your chin up. Raymond. All right, as always, we thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy our show as much as we enjoy bringing it to you. Thank you for tuning in to the Boxing Authorities.